guys, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Robbie Cassidy, and today we're going to discuss daily practices that you can do or that you can incorporate into your life to improve overall well-being. Okay, now what I mean by that is well-being really is the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. That's kind of one of the definitions of well-being, and we are always looking to improve our well-being, improve our quality of life so we can live the life that we want. And in this episode, I'm going to tie it to how this actually is going to improve your quality of life, but also improve, let's say, your pain levels, your risk of injury, and how it'll improve everything overall. And then longevity, obviously, is the next one. So I'm going to try to tie it all together. I'm going to give you a few ideas behind what you can do to improve it, and I'll talk through why it's important, and then when you feel it's probably time to incorporate it a small bit more into your lifestyle. Before I get started, I want to just talk a small bit about what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm taking on a lot more clients at the moment, and what my client base is I basically deal with people who have long-term injuries and who have tried different things in the past and just hasn't worked for them. Now, when it comes to a long-term injury, if you've heard any of my other podcasts before, you'll always hear me talking about that you need to take this holistic, comprehensive approach. And I think that's where a lot of people fall out, is that they're given exercises to go away and work on, and then they go away and it might work out for them for 3 or 4 weeks. But after that, then it just starts to kick up and flare up again, and they have no reason why. So a huge part of the one-to-one that I do with people is we do, there's a big educational base to it, in that we talk about how to improve it, what could be causing a flare-up, what could be contributing to this, and on top of that, then how can you improve it? How can you where you should look at pain, how you should look at the body, and then we also work on exercises week in, week out based in mobility, strength, breathing exercises, movement exercises, ones that you can work on yourself. So if you're interested in that, if you've an injury that's gone on a long time, you've tried loads of different things, then definitely get in contact. But to jump straight into the podcast, we're going to talk about, just really quickly, why it's important to practice well-being and why it's important to practice it daily, more so than just practicing it kind of generally. So really what you're looking at when you're practicing well-being is you are, as I said, looking to become more comfortable, become healthier, become happier in your life. So the idea behind it is that you're improving quality of life, and your quality of life, and you're trying to get to the life where you're content, where you're happy. Well, this is what I guess, or just what I garner from talking to people, is they're always trying to get to that area, or that stage in life that they are happy out with everything that they're doing, that they're not dictated, their life isn't dictated by fear or anxiety or lack of confidence. They are trying to get to a state where they're happy in themselves and self-confident, and they're healthy. And that's really what we all should be aiming for, is to get to that level. And it is a journey. It's not that it's just you get there and you're done and dusted. Obviously, we know it's a journey, so it's important to incorporate these daily aspects along your journey to at the end of your life, you can look back and say, well, that was a good trip. Now, it is, as I said, it does improve quality of life. On top of that, it's going to improve your mood, your energy, and in general, your longevity. So you'll be able to keep up the same activities that you enjoy for a longer period of your life. There's no point being extremely active as a young person, and then as you get older, just dropping off and kind of sitting back and watching TV. And even if that makes you content, I suppose I shouldn't stop that either. But you still want to be able to, if your friends are doing something, if your family's doing something, if your children are doing something, you want to be able to join in, and you want to be able to participate. You want to have the option there, at least, to participate. So they're some of the reasons I would say, like, over a lifespan, why you should be practicing well-being. But in the moment, and when it comes to rehab, and when it comes to people with injuries going on for a long time, really what you're looking at is how it actually affects your pain levels. Because if your mood is down, if your motivation is down, if you're really fatigued, then your pain is going to go through the roof. Okay, if you're angry or if you're anxious, you're going to notice that your pain will go really, really high, and that you will suffer a lot more than you generally will. Okay, and we're trying to reduce that suffering as much as we can. Okay, so it will decrease pain or improve pain because of the fact that it will improve your mood, it'll improve your energy levels. And then on top of that, it'll improve recovery overall. So it'll actually improve your sleep. You'll sleep better, you'll be more comfortable at night time. You won't feel the need to be waking up anxiously, or you won't be shooting up in the middle of the night because of pain. Also, like from let's say back injury or hip injury or something like that. So it does improve your sleep, and on top of that, then it will improve your recovery. And that also ties back in, you will have heard me saying before, it comes back to this holistic approach and how all these different things are contributing to different issues that you may be having. And mood is going to be a huge one on recovery, because of the fact that if you have a low mood, you're going to be obviously lacking motivation, you're going to sleep poorly, you're going to be more fatigued, you're going to be less confident, you're not going to want to do things. And all those things will play back to reducing your activity levels, increasing your pain levels, and affecting your ability to rehab an injury or get back from an injury. Okay? And on top of that, if your mood is low, you're going to be more likely to put different obstacles in your way. And you're going to be more likely to just accept them as is and not move forward at your life. Okay, so it's important that we do look at these things about how we can improve it in general. Now, when do you feel like it's time to start incorporating it? Well, in a general sense, it's always time to incorporate it. But if you're listening to this podcast now and you're feeling that your mood is very low and that you're becoming more negative, like you're having a lot more negative experiences, and because experiences, we might not be able to control what happens in an experience, but we can control our reaction to it. And you'll find that if you're in a negative mindset, that you'll have a lot more negative experiences because you won't look at them in a positive light and you look at them in that negative shadow. So it is important to, if you feel that you're in that negative kind of a mindset at the moment or mind frame now, I wish it was easy to just say switch and become positive, but obviously that's not the case. There's a lot of things we have to do before that, and I will hopefully be able to give you some ideas on what you can do to try help that. But on top of that, if you're lacking motivation as well, this is another big one. If you're lacking motivation, it could be that you're really fatigued just because you're not recovering properly from, let's say, training sessions or from the high workload schedule, all these different things. They're all going to play into it. And if you're not taking care of those, you're going to be fatigued and you're going to be lacking motivation to do things that you love. And if you're, as I said, it's a vicious cycle. These things come back around, pain will start kicking up and it'll stick around for longer periods. So let's say like you injured your shoulder before, you injured your back before, your hip, that will stick around for longer if your mood is low. Because I've talked about it in previous podcasts about how the sensitivity in that area can be turned up and increased, and things will affect that. So it's really, really important to look at what we can do to reduce that and reduce the effects of it. And on top of that, then, if we're looking at it in a rehab process, if we're looking at it during a rehab process, it's going to be really important to start including daily practices to improve your well-being, because of the fact that first it will put you into a more rest and recovery state and a healing state. So we look at it in a fight or flight state versus a rest and digest state. That's the two ways, like, in a very basic sense, how your nervous system works on a dial. Turned up to fight or flight, or it's turned down to rest and digest. And we're looking to get it into that rest and digest after we have put it through different stressors and different stimuluses that are progressing, our exercises and stuff like that. We want to get it back into that rest and digest so it can reevaluate the situation and recover from it. So important to improve your daily, or improve these practices, or I suppose be committed to these practices, or really, really focus on being as consistent with these practices as you possibly can. And by being consistent, you will find over time that slowly but surely it will start having an effect on you, and it will start improving. Okay, so without further ado, before we keep going on or jumping into that anymore, we may as well start talking about what you can do. And you'll find that a lot of these will be really simple. There'll be simple things that you can do that you can start doing today. But just having an idea of them, and maybe I suppose having a better awareness of them, will improve your likelihood of actually doing them. I had a podcast with Dr. Perry Nicholson probably 3 or 4 ago, and one of the main points coming out of that podcast is you can't change something you're not aware of, or you won't change something you're not aware of. So hopefully this podcast highlights some things and sheds some light on them, and you become more aware of them. And hopefully after that, then you can start incorporating them more. So very first one, and this one where you'll be thinking, geez, that makes sense, or that's very, very simple one, is you really want to look at including more positive emotions, or having more positive emotions in your life and on a daily basis. Now, what does that mean? Like, if it was just that easy, I suppose people would be thinking, but it is when you break it down. So there's a lot of times throughout the day that you can laugh at something, whether it be laughing at yourself, Obviously, you don't want to be laughing at other people all the time, but laughing with other people is an important one. It could be something as small as, I don't know, even if you're on Instagram and it's something that's barely funny, but just about funny, and then you start laughing at it. Okay, one thing that I've had an issue with, and this is going to go against what people are thinking at the moment, because especially right now, everyone's watching it, is Friends. Everyone's watching Friends at the moment, okay? Well, a lot of people are. And I'm not going to knock it. I loved Friends when I was younger, but I struggle to watch it now because of the laugh track. Because the fact that if they remove that laugh track, there will be a lot of empty pauses in Friends, okay? And where am I going with this? You're wondering. Well, when the laugh track is there, you're more likely to laugh or giggle at it, a certain scene, whether it be funny or not, okay? But that's a choice that you make, okay? They're leading you onto that laugh track by using it, but it's still a choice that you make, is to laugh at it. Now, so it's not that everything in Friends is breakdown funny and hilarious, but they are leading you on in the whole episode. They're building and building and building. And because of that, then you're in the mood. It's like if you go to a comedy gig, you're in the mood to laugh. Okay, so let's just try and incorporate that mood throughout your day. Look to laugh at more things, enjoy more things. Really, really just be a bit more relaxed in situations. If something happens to you and it's a negative experience and you don't like it, like let's say you're making coffee and you drop the coffee on the ground, try laughing at that, okay, and see how it'll change your mindset towards it, as opposed to getting angry. Okay, so laughing and joy, contentment are three ones that really, if you can include more of those in your day, you will become more positive. And what's joy? Like, this is one that I've talked about, and it's actually popped up a small bit more with clients recently, is that I've clients who are struggling with fairly significant back pain that's going on a long time, and they're on the borderline in the case of getting surgery, and they feel like they've exhausted all options. And one really simple tip that I've included with these clients, or some of them anyway, when it suits some, it doesn't suit others, is I've just said, okay, right, so we know that there's a lot of pain there. We know there's a really high sensitivity there. So I want you to pick one song a day that I want you to dance to. So whether it be a 3-minute song, 2-minute song, 5-minute song, whatever it is, I want you just to dance to that song every single day. And as you get more into it, I want you to pick a couple of songs and maybe every hour do a small dance or something. And that works two ways. First, it brings them joy, which lifts their mood, and then they can laugh at themselves as they're dancing to a song in the kitchen in the middle of the day. So there's a lot of things back in this as well. But on top of it, it puts them into more of a flow state, and I'll talk about flow, and it puts them in the mood of enjoying themselves. Okay, so we're hitting the laughing side, we're hitting the joy, then we're also hitting the movement side of things. Okay, and that's really, really important in the rehab process as well, because when you're moving, your body feels like it's more comfortable if it's moving in certain situations or certain positions. So by doing that, I'm touching all those, and then when they look back at it, they're content, they're happy out that they did it in the first place, and they'll find that their mood will be lifted. So that's a really, really simple one. Dancing is an excellent one. It's not something I'd be good at. It's something I'm shit at, to be honest, and it's something that I would be very self-conscious of before. But as I've kind of gotten older, not that I'm that old, but as I have gotten older, I've kind of fallen into it a small bit more, and don't really think about it as much when I am doing it, because I used to think about it, and I used to freeze because I used to be thinking about how I'm dancing, how people are looking at me. Now I don't really care that much. I'm not a fucking break dancer by any means, but I definitely do. Sorry for cursing, but I definitely do enjoy it a bit more now, because I don't think about it and you can let go. And that's one that I would say for everyone to include that bit more, because it does bring people joy, and there's rhythm in it as well, and there's a lot to rhythm, but I'll talk about that again. Now, following on, more positive, obviously the next one has to be fewer negative emotions. So I want you to think about what makes you angry during the day, what you're fearful of, and what you're anxious of. Okay? Now, if you think about these, what I would say, and I want you to look at this two ways. I want you to try avoid these experiences as much as possible. So try to reduce the amount of fear, anger, and anxiety. But really, I want you to first think about reducing the amount of anger you have. Okay? Because fear and anxiety, we can look at that in a different light. But by reducing the amount of times you get angry during the day, as I said, if you spill coffee, instead of getting angry, laugh at it. It's the same thing. You still will have to clean it up. It doesn't make one bit of difference whether you're angry, you have to clean it up, or you're happy, you have to clean it up. You still take the 3 or 4 minutes to clean it up after. So it doesn't make that much difference. You have the choice to decide which one you want to be. Okay. Now, fear and anxiety are ones that definitely restrict a lot of people, or really limit a lot of people on what they can do, in that they're very anxious to do stuff, are very fearful to do things. I'd say look at this 2 ways. If you're fearful of things, and they're always you're always fearful of. Now, there's a big difference between being scared of a dog, which is something that I have started to try get over a bit. Living in Bali, if anyone has been here before, it's nothing but stray dogs on the road, and stray dogs that love to bark at you from about a metre away, 1.5 metres away, and they love doing it in groups as well. They love 3 or 4 of them, enjoy going around in a little gang barking at people. Now, they're never really that aggressive, but they do definitely bark at you from very close. So that's fearful for me anyway. That's something that I would be like, Jesus, I don't really want to be in that situation. But I found kind of, obviously in being around them a bit more, that they're not that aggressive, that you can kind of get over it, and you can kind of build up a bit of a tolerance to it. But I still try to avoid those situations. So I'm not going to go, if there's a gang of stray dogs down an alley, I'm not going to go walking down the alley to try and meet them. I'm going to avoid that, because that's one situation. But an anxiety would be another one, and people get anxious with everything. But I would say anxiety is something that limits a lot of people and hits a lot of people, but it's something that can be overcome quickly, and it's something that I learned when I was young. Now, and I'm just giving examples of myself, and I will give examples of other people and clients and that as well. But I find it's probably easier to give examples of myself, because I can be a lot more. I can be true to it. I can be genuine or authentic if I say this a bit more. In that, anxiety would have been something that I would have dealt with a good bit when I was younger. And what I mean is, I was never that anxious a person. I was always a fairly confident person. But when I was boxing, we used to go to any boxing gym, if anyone's ever done it, are usually in areas that are kind of, how would you say it, poverty areas. But they're definitely that small bit rougher, okay? And the clientele, or the population that's involved in boxing, are generally that bit more aggressive with that. I'm talking generally now here, not everybody. And I used to be very anxious going to these places. It'd just be me and my father, and I wouldn't know anyone, and there'd be a lot of people around there, very aggressive, really aggressive tone to it, and you'd have to get up, and you might be in a ring then fighting another fella who's from there, and you could have 50 or 100 people shouting for the other fella, and only my outlet shouting for me. And win, lose or draw, it was always kind of the same. You always came out, you shook hands, you went down, and it was always at the end, and it was a bit more relaxed, and it didn't really bother me. But before it, I had a lot of anxiety going into fights. And obviously the bigger the fight, then the more anxiety that you would get. But I always tried reflecting back after, and I kind of learned this more as I got older, to reflect back after when I have it done, and think about how it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't that big of an issue. Nothing really ever kicked off. There was no real problems ever. And because of that, then I was able to deal with it a lot better. And I found that was something that has kind of stood to me since, in that I've always thought about when I go into a situation that I'm anxious about, because obviously everyone gets anxious about different situations, especially if it's the unknown. That's going to be that's going to wreck some people's brains. They're really going to avoid those situations as much as possible. And I know I'm trying to say fewer negative emotions, but what I'm saying is you have to, if you're anxious about something and you go through it and it's all okay, you have to reflect on that and think about how it was okay, and you got through it, and you were able to get through it. And then on top of that will build your confidence, and then you won't be as anxious the next time. Okay, so that's what I just want to touch on those really quick. Now, on top of that, I should say, you want to avoid experiences that are going to be negative with no positive side. Anxious, going into a situation, if there's a possible positive side to it, about you come out the other end and you're better, that's excellent. But fearful situations where there's no positive side, like as I was saying, going down an alleyway with a load of dogs, obviously it's not going to be that enjoyable. But it could be something else for somebody else. Now, what I would say is, anger is another one, or negative emotions, negative relationships is a really big one. Okay, that bring on negative emotions. So if there's somebody that you know is going to be draining, it's going to be really affecting your life, you're probably going to have to look at either addressing that situation with them or avoiding that situation so you don't cause any animosity. Okay, and because if that's going to be dragging you down, especially as you're going through rehab, that's going to really affect you and affect your mindset. Now, moving on from there, we want to talk about vitality. So vitality is like having a positive sense of your physical health and your energy. So you can see, so they all play into each other. Now, vitality is an important one because you want to have this idea, and I always say it on Instagram, and I always say it to clients, is that your body is a healing and adaptation machine. It will, once you give it enough time, it will recover from nearly anything. Okay, once you give it the right stress and enough time to figure it out, it usually will recover from anything. Now, you have to be confident that that's going to work. Okay, and you have to be positive, looking at it positively, that your health will get better once you take the time to make it better. And by using these practices, you can do that. But having that positive mindset and just blankly still eating 10,000 calories a day and not exercising and still being extremely negative and not getting out and not enjoying life, then it's going to be hard to have that positive sense. So that positive sense comes with everything else, comes with improving everything else and implementing these other practices. Okay, so become more confident. Vitality is a big one. Positive sense of physical health and energy. Even if you are tired, still at times try to do an activity. Let's say if it's just meeting friends or going to the cinema or doing something like that, still try to do it because it will improve your energy levels and you'll be more confident then that you could do it next time. Avoiding it and staying in the comfort zone at times is not going to, what's the saying, you will never grow in the comfort zone. Nothing ever grows in the comfort zone. Okay, so I would say other ways of doing it is challenging yourself and exercising. If you do that, you will have a positive sense of your body, you'll have a positive sense of your physical health, and you will have more energy in general. Now, positive relationships is the next one, and I touched on that about avoiding negative relationships. But having positive relationships with your family or building positive relationships with friends and family will give you more comfort and you'll feel like you're more secure, okay? And then if you are more secure, because one of the most important things in a rehab context is that people have someone to fall back on, or a secure, how do you say it? Group security, I guess is what it is, or knowing that there's people there to help. Social support is actually what the word I was looking for. Having social support and having people around you that can help you and building those relationships specifically, so you will have those people and you get rid of people who are taken from you, is really, really important when you're rehabbing and in general. Okay, so make sure to hang out with people who make you feel better, make you feel more secure. I would also add to that and say, make sure you're not the person who's draining to them. Okay, so make sure you're not the one who's adding negative experience to their life, because then they won't want to hang out with you and they want to avoid you. How would you be adding negative experiences, going to them and always just talking negatively about everything and how bad everything is? There's no problem with talking about stuff, but just make sure that you're not draining to them. There's no problem with discussing how you're feeling and all that, but just make sure that you're not a constant burden. Okay, and I really should say that, take that with a pinch of salt, because some people will overthink that and think if they are a burden. So just take it as, hang out with people who make you feel better and try to make them feel better as well. That's probably the easiest way to leave it. Okay, moving on now. We're looking at self-acceptance, and this kind of ties back into that vitality side of things. Having a positive sense of health, or having a positive mindset towards yourself. So how can you practice that? Look back at your achievements. Reflect on challenges that you've overcome in the past. Have a positive mindset in general about being optimistic about how things will work out. All of those, if you incorporate all of those, you will very quickly become more confident in yourself. Okay? So it is important to do that. Now, things that helped me in the past were a book called Mind Power by John Keogh. And it's really interesting. It goes into like different ways that you can use positive mindset to help you, and it's more being about optimistic about things, really, is what the book is about. But it actually touches a lot on law of attraction as well, and I don't know if anyone is interested in that, or who would have heard of it before, thought of it before. Something that I would be interested in, and something that I look into a good bit. and it kind of teaches that side of things. The other one I would say is Obstacle in the Way by Ryan Holiday. Really, really good. Goes into a lot of examples of how people in the past have tried different things to help to overcome different obstacles. And that's an excellent one. I would definitely promote other people to start doing a bit more. So if you can, I think Obstacle in the Way is good. And I think and Mind Power by John Kyo is very good. Next on the list then, we're looking at mastery. Okay, mastery is an interesting one for me. And this is something that I really enjoy, and it's something that I myself value a lot. So mastery is having competence in completing challenging tasks. So it touches back into what I was talking about before, and the anxiety side of things comes into this. Okay, so really when you're looking at mastery, you're looking at challenging yourself. Doing things that you're really good at is going to improve your sense of well-being. Okay, it's going to improve your well-being overall. So if you can play an instrument, play the instrument. Don't just drop it and say, well, I haven't played it in years. If you're a good runner, run. If you're good at sports, play sports, right? If you're shy at sports, play sports. Try to get better at it. Okay, all these things, well, one is one, like you can still do the other. So if you are not good at playing instruments, start playing an instrument. You'll become more competent at it, you'll get better, and then you'll have that sense of achievement. Okay, and it's important to have that with things. On top of that, try different activities. Try pick up something new. Something that you can pick up today, really, really simple. It looks more difficult than it is. It might take you 3 days to learn it or 4 days to learn it. Is juggling. Juggling is extremely simple task that people should try. And it will, once you get into it, it's a really, really, it's a lovely flow state. It's a really nice flow state to get into. For me at the moment, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to work on jiu-jitsu a bit more. Before it would have been boxing and football for me, or even studying, going through college and stuff like that. That would have been my thing before, like let's say doing my masters or doing my undergrad. They would have been real challenging, so I loved getting through those. I loved at the end of it, really is what I did. Getting through them was tough at times, as it is for anybody. But try challenge yourselves a bit more and try learn new skills as much as you can. Okay, moving on from there then, and I've only a couple more to go. So we're looking at autonomy. And autonomy is when you feel independent. So when you're feeling like you have a sense of control. Okay. So I'd have a couple of tips on this. Is I would say stop waiting for other people to do things with you. And this is something that I've been so guilty of in the past. Is I've always waited for someone else to, let's say, go surfing with me or go training with me, go into the gym with me, something like that. Now, social support, as I said, helps. It definitely does. But if you're always waiting and it's never getting done, then it's time to look at different alternatives. And I think by doing things by yourself, you will get that feeling of independence and you will feel a lot more autonomous in what you're doing. Which comes into the next one, which would be personal growth. Doing things independently will help you grow. And looking for what is personal growth, it's seeking development or improvement. So it can be literally anything from reading, studying, training, practicing a skill, or as I said, practicing everything that I have said before this, in terms of this whole podcast, is personal growth. And having that, improving your daily practices is personal growth. And Tim Ferriss had a really good quote. He talked about the more voluntary suffering you build into your life, the less involuntary suffering that will affect your life. And I'll talk about this more as I go through it. This is a really interesting one. It's something that I try to lean into a small bit more. David Goggins is very interesting as well. If you're looking at it, Navy SEAL, he would have talked about it as well, about how leaning into it, leaning into the pain or leaning into the discomfort is a huge one in helping you grow. And I think we should be looking to always develop ourselves and improve ourselves. And that will improve our vitality as well. So these things tie into each other. Now, engagement in life is a extremely important one. And as you can see, they're all starting to kind of come together a bit more. So becoming absorbed or interested in what you're doing a sport that you enjoy, doing activities that you enjoy, hanging around people that you enjoy. That's all engagement in life. What's disengagement in life is being on your phone and swiping through Instagram, swiping through TikTok, just because you're uncomfortable or you're bored. So I'd say definitely set times that you leave it down. If you're with family and friends, leave it down. Sit and try to be content with the conversation dwindle. So if you feel that you're just sitting there and the conversation is kind of dying off, what most people do is they go for their phone straight away to distract them and make look like they're doing something. Everyone is guilty of this. So I would say, at first, try to sit there, even if you're just twiddling your thumbs, looking around. Try to do that a bit more, because then you will notice that it's not that big of an issue, and the conversation will pick up again. But if you pick up your phone, you know that that's at least a 2 or 3 minute block, 4 or 5 minute block, that the conversation will die until you find something that's interesting, and then you jump back into it, and then the next time it stops, you go on it again. So I would say try to stop that as much as possible. Another way to become more engaged in life, and it's kind of what I talked about before, is I'm a big believer in building resilience. Okay, whether it be that you're improving mental or physical resilience, and I suppose they both go together. Now, cold water training is a really, really good way of doing it. It helps you build resilience, and you can do it at home. Having a cold shower. I don't think there's anyone in the world that wants to get into the cold shower. I think most people would prefer just to get into a nice warm shower. But forcing yourself to get into a cold shower changes your mindset. It puts you into more of a growth mindset, in that you didn't want to do it. You know you'll be better for doing it. You know you'll be better for challenging yourself. Once you get out of it, then it's never that bad when you get in it. It's always, whoa, it's a big shock at the start, but then that kind of goes away very fast. And then when you get out of it, you have that sense of achievement that you're after doing something that you didn't want to do. So I would say, for me anyway, I like to, in a way, and this I'm talking about this now, I'm not talking about this in injury wise, but I'm talking about, I like to embrace discomfort or embrace pain in ways, and pain, discomfort, whatever way you want to look at it. I'm not saying now because you have a sore hip, go out and run 10 miler, because then you'll have an extremely sore hip, but there's ways you can work around that, okay? And I'm not saying you have bulging disc hitting a nerve, so start deadlifting heavy weights and really dog that nerve. That probably wouldn't be the best way of doing it, but there's other ways of doing it, and you will have to go through a bit of pain to improve your pain at times. So I think look at how you can build resilience physically and mentally, and it's a really, really good one to make you feel like you've achieved something, make you feel like you've mastered something, which ties into mastery. Purpose and meaning are the next ones then, and sensing that your life has value. So what can you do to have more purpose or have more meaning in your life? Well, I think, for me anyway, I think charity is a really, really good way of doing it, and helping other people, whether it be your family, your friends, someone in your community, helping out the community, that will get you more engaged in life, and it will also feel like you're doing something that you really like, that's purposeful. And I had Shane Finn on the last podcast. Definitely go back and check that one out after this. He's an ultra endurance athlete, and he talks about how doing these ultra endurance events for charity give him huge purpose, because he's closely linked to the charities that he's working for, and that he has family and friends that are benefiting from these charities, and it gives him a lot of purpose to do it. And I think that's a great way of doing it. So I think if anyone's interested, check that podcast out after this. He goes into a lot of detail on it and how it does, how it affects his life. The last one now, and is going to be transcendent experiences. Jeez, I nearly said it wrong. Transcendent experiences. Okay, so what's a transcendent experience? It's like awe, a sense of flow, inspiration, gratitude. These are all transcendent experiences. So how do you get into that state? Everyone wishes, okay, I'd love to be that in a bit more, but awe itself, I think, for me, I love that sense of awe. I think going to places, awe-inspiring places, like for me, when I went to the Cliffs of Moher the first time, and I only live 25 minutes away from it, or 20 minutes away from it, or I should say when I went the first time again, I didn't go for like 10 years. When I went to the first time again, that was a real eye-opening experience for me. It was a real sense of awe about it was magnificent. I hadn't seen anything like this in years. The same when I went to Niagara Falls, when I went to Yosemite, all these things gave me that sense of awe. And I think if you look at what's around you, like what nature is around you, or nature is a great way of doing it. What can you, let's say, go for a hike, go for a run, find a place that you haven't been to before that's really going to give you that sense. And if you do that, you'll find that you feel great after it as well. So for me, another thing I like to do is I like to watch people compete at the highest level. That really, really engages me. I really look at that and say, how did I get to that level? What did I do to get to that level? And it makes me think about it a lot more. And I have a real sense of awe of looking at that. Let's say like the Olympics is probably one now. looking at the Champions League, looking at especially with footballers or soccer players, or even high level boxers, anything like that, high level jiu-jitsu, anything that people are at the highest level, really gives me that sense of how did they get to that. That's such a, for me anyway, I'm extremely interested in that side of things. So I think that you should look at things that you are also interested in. It could be anything. It could be an artist as well. All of those things play into it. Flow is the next one. Flow is practicing getting into, like, you have to really practice getting into a flow state. Flow state is really when time disappears, where you're completely immersed in an activity. For me, in general, I actually love podcasting. It's my favorite form of social media, in a way, or media, or content building, because I find that I get into a flow when I am in it, and that I can, things that pop it up and I can jump over and back, especially when I have guests on. I love that as well, but I do love doing them by myself. So I think find out what gets you into a flow state. Other things that help me kind of fall into a flow state at the moment would be like surfing, jiu-jitsu, if I was playing football, driving. I love driving on a scooter, but driving in general is a really good one, because you can kind of just get into that state of, like, you're not accelerating, decelerating really hard, you're kind of just in that state of flow. And then another one for me, when I do it, is like cleaning. If I'm cleaning up, I just get into that state when I know I have to get something cleaned. I just get into that state of jumping from one thing to the next. Playing music is another one where you're just trying to get into rhythm. All of those would be flow states for me. I think look at what you can use, what gets you into a flow state, a state that you just feel that time disappears. Then we're looking at inspiration and gratitude. So inspiration is start to think bigger. Watch other people do big things. Get involved in things that are bigger than yourself. Doing that will inspire you. It'll inspire you to do bigger things, but you have to get into that mindset of that you want to do that anyway. And then feel inspired. Feel motivated. Make sure that you think about them when you are feeling it. Really, really reflect on them as well then. That is huge, and it really will help you become, I suppose it ties into personal growth, become a better person. Gratitude then is the final one. Gratitude is something that I think a lot of people should practice, and I feel it's something that I should practice a bit more myself. I do fall in and out of it at times, but it's definitely something that I want to practice a bit more, and it's tied to longevity. So gratitude is like, I suppose, thinking back on, I want you to be grateful for what is today, okay? So in the last podcast, Shane talks a lot about how it's an absolute miracle that you can get up and you can walk in the morning. And you should be grateful for that, because there's a lot of people who can't do that, who can't put their 2 feet on the ground. So being grateful for the fact that you can walk, that you can train, that you have the opportunity to train, that you live in a society, part of the world, that you can do that, while other people who are less well off can't do that. Okay? The fact that you can start again if you want to, and you can try out new things. A lot of people who don't have that opportunity. The fact that you can listen to this podcast right now, hearing, extremely, another one you just take for granted. One for me that when I got COVID is I lost my sense of smell and my sense of taste, and that was a balls. Like, I really didn't like that, and I never thought about it before. I never thought about how much I enjoyed taste, how much I enjoyed smelling things, and only when it came back, then I was like, well, that was something that I really, really missed. It's something that adds to your life in all ways. And I think it's something that I have definitely become more tuned into at the moment because of the fact that I lost it for a while. So I can only imagine what it's like if you lose something completely. Sight, taste, smell, all your senses, getting up, being able to start again on a new day. All these things play into it. And I think you should be grateful for them, or you should practice being grateful for them. And the only way you're going to practice it is sit and think about it and give thanks for it. And yeah, I'm going to leave it on that, guys. That's everything I wanted to talk about today. Why are we practicing these? Why do you want to practice improving your well-being? There's a lot of reasons. First, it improves your longevity. On top of that, the most important, it improves your quality of life. You'll live a better life. You'll live a happier life. You'll live a healthier life. You'll live a more engaged life. You'll have a lot more memories. You'll be comfortable. Doing all these things will help you be more comfortable, happy, healthier. Okay? Then also it's going to reduce your pain levels. It's going to improve your mood and your energy. It's going to improve your recovery and your sleep and your relationships, everything. So think back on them, what you can start doing today and what you can incorporate into your life. I'm just going to say the main headings really quickly again. More positive emotions, laughing, joy, contentment, fewer negative, fear, anxiety, anger, vitality, having a positive sense of your physical health and your energy, positive relationships with your friends and family, self-acceptance, having a positive attitude toward yourself. Mastery is competence in completing challenging tasks. Okay, so trying out new things and challenging yourself and then becoming competent at them and reflecting on them and being happy that you were or that you are. Autonomy, feeling independent. Personal growth, seeking development and improvement. Okay, engagement in life, being absorbed and interested and involved. Purpose and meaning, so sense your life has value and how you can help others. And transcendent experiences. Jesus, I nearly messed it up. Awe, flow, inspiration and gratitude are to name a few. So guys, hopefully that gives you a better insight in how you can incorporate it into your own life. Episode is a small bit longer than I had expected, but I did want to make sure that I went into detail on each of them and give you examples of how you can do it and how I've done it how I've tried to do it myself. And I want you to go away and think about how you can do them yourself. Just copying what I have done might not be the thing for you. You'll have to think about how you can include it in your own lifestyle. But guys, that's everything from me today. As I said, if anyone has a long-term injury that's gone on a long time, or even if you have a new injury and you want to set up a consultation, I also do those. I just do one-to-one consultations where we talk through, we do them in like 1 and 3 sessions at a time, and we just go through everything from injury history, what could be contributing, kind of take a holistic approach to it. If you're looking for a longer term, more educational based side of things, then definitely look at that one-to-one coaching. But easiest way to do it is send me a message on Instagram, on LinkedIn, send me a message or send me an email at mobilitytutor@gmail.com. We can set up a free call and we can just discuss what's the best option for you. Okay. But guys, that is everything from me today. I hope you took something from this. And if you did, I'd love if you could send this to a friend or a family member who you also think would enjoy it. I would also love if you could rate it on iTunes and if you could leave a comment. And then lastly, the best thing you can do for this podcast is that you can share it. Or one of the best things is to share it on your story, or as I said, share it with a friend or a family member. Doing all of those helps me massively, and it really helps this podcast and gives me a better understanding of what you prefer to listen to. So guys, that's everything for me today. I'm going to leave it at that. We have a couple of interesting guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, so definitely stay tuned, subscribe, and I will chat to you all again next week. Have a good one.